A small mistake and the entire world became a playground for death. Now, all that remains is one boy who will either survive by his strength, or become death's prey. An ordinary American family decides to leave the city for a few days to spend some time together. Amanda and Clay get into the car with their children and head towards a rented cabin. The kids swim in the pool, and Clay checks out the house, while Amanda goes back to the city to get supplies. On her way back, she sees a man filling his entire car with water bottles. Amanda finds him strange but pays no attention. After reaching home, the family plans to go to the nearby beach. While everyone is busy with their activities, the youngest daughter, Rose, sees an oil tanker out at sea. She watches carefully and realizes the ship is heading straight for them. Clay believes the ship will change course and not come ashore. But that doesn't happen. The ship crashes directly onto the beach. Panicking, the family runs back towards the rented house. On the way, they learn that more such incidents are happening, as if the ship's navigation systems have failed. Before dinner, Amanda sees some deer in the yard. She finds them cute and doesn't pay much attention. A little later, the children fall asleep, and the couple sits down to relax with some wine. Suddenly, some strangers come to the door. A black man introduces himself as George. He is actually the owner of this house. But due to recent events, he and his daughter had to spend the night here. The network is down in the city, and there's no electricity, so the elevators aren't working. After surgery, he can't climb stairs to the 14th floor. At first, Amanda doesn't understand what these people want. But after a while, it becomes clear to her, and she refuses. The idea of letting strangers into the house doesn't sit well with her. George even offers to refund part of the rent, but Amanda doesn't change her mind. The atmosphere becomes tense, and Clay tries to talk to his wife. After hearing Amanda out, Clay says, "Let's talk to the homeowner again." He says if George turns out to be dishonest or suspicious, they won't let him stay. Meanwhile, a state of emergency is declared on the news. Hearing this, Clay lets the guests stay, even though Amanda is completely against it. George and his daughter, Ruth, go down to the basement, where they had already set up their things, so as not to disturb the new tenants. The next morning, Amanda sees a notification about a cyber attack on her phone. But as soon as she tries to show her husband, all the news mysteriously disappears. Trying to understand the situation, Clay heads towards the city to find out what's happening, while Amanda stays home with the kids. Amanda tells George this, but he believes it might be the work of minor hackers. He says such incidents have happened before and things return to normal. Meanwhile, Clay can't even reach the city because his phone and GPS aren't working. Helpless, he wanders around looking for directions. After a while, he finds a Spanish-speaking woman who is very scared and pleading for help. Clay first tries to understand what she's saying. But when he realizes he doesn't speak Spanish, he drives away. Just then, he sees a large drone in the sky dropping red things. He immediately turns the car around and heads home. It was later discovered the drone was dropping leaflets. But the text on them wasn't in English. Soon, everyone finds out the leaflets said, "Death to America." Meanwhile, because the internet is down, Rose can't watch the last episode of Friends. She feels terrible and thinks she might never know how the story ends. A little later, Rose sees dozens of deer in the yard and tells her brother Archie, "Let's go towards the forest." Archie agrees, and they both set off following the deer. Deep in the forest, they find a small cabin whose windows offer a clear view of the neighbor's mansion. Meanwhile, George decides to go meet the neighbors, hoping to get some useful information. As a precaution, George takes a weapon with him. He enters the house and finds broken windows and scattered belongings. After a while, he finds a satellite phone. But surprisingly, it doesn't work either, just like the mobile phones. This meant the satellites were probably down too. George surveys the area and heads towards the beach, where a plane had recently crashed, with passengers' bodies lying on the sand. Then he looks up and sees another large airliner speeding towards him. He immediately starts running to avoid another disaster. After returning home, George shares his suspicions with Amanda. George is actually in finance, and his job has trained him to notice the smallest changes in numbers and data. He explains that some time ago, he had a strong feeling something very bad was about to happen, but he couldn't pinpoint it clearly. That's why he brought Ruth here. He believes the country has suffered a major cyber attack, and the situation will get worse. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by a very loud noise, so loud everyone has to cover their ears. Amanda goes into the forest where she finds Archie and Rose. At that moment, she remembers the man she saw in the parking lot outside the store. Hearing this, George suspects it might be his neighbor, Danny, who has been obsessively into survivalism for years, preparing for every kind of emergency. Thinking the threat to the country might be real, the family decides to go to a relative's house. But to do that, they have to pass through the city. George tries to stop them, but Ruth says they should let them go. She believes it will be better for them to be alone. As soon as the family heads towards the city, they see a massive traffic jam. Getting closer, Amanda gets out of the car to ask other drivers why everyone is stopped and why no one is moving forward. But her surprise turns to shock when she realizes there are no drivers in the cars. It turns out many Tesla cars are on autopilot, all driving the same route. One by one, they crash into the stationary cars ahead, causing a huge accident. Seeing the situation deteriorate, Amanda quickly returns to the car. Just then, she sees another Tesla coming straight for them. She immediately jumps into the driver's seat and manages to maneuver the car away, avoiding the other vehicles. After a difficult journey, she gets the family safely back to George's house. Everyone sits at the table, thinking about what to do next. Amanda and George discuss the situation. George tells her about a very high-profile client he had, so rich and powerful that everyone in the country would recognize his name, though George doesn't reveal it. Just one day, before this entire event, that client suddenly called and asked to transfer all his money to another account. Right then, George felt something strange was about to happen in the world. At the end of the call, the client gave a strange message. Take care of yourself. George was afraid this man knew more than ordinary Americans. Out of that fear, he left the city and came to his country house. Now Amanda begins to understand that the situation is truly very serious. To get some relief, she starts dancing with George in the living room. While dancing, George mentions his wife, who was on a flight when all this destruction began. She probably didn't survive. But George refuses to even think about it. The next morning, everyone discovers that Rose is missing, and Archie's teeth are starting to fall out. Soon after, he starts vomiting uncontrollably. Archie thinks a tick bit him in the forest yesterday. George sees his symptoms and realizes it's Lyme disease. When going to the hospital seems impossible, due to the blocked roads, George suggests going to their neighbor Danny's place, who has spent his entire life preparing for doomsday-like situations. Clay takes Archie and sets off with George to find that lonely, strange neighbor, Danny. Meanwhile, Amanda and Ruth are looking for Rose. They reach the forest cabin and start arguing. Suddenly, they feel some commotion outside and fall silent. Amanda steps outside the door but sees no one. Then she sees bicycle tracks on the ground. Perhaps Rose passed by there. She thinks about following them, and turns back to call Ruth. But then she notices that Ruth is surrounded on all sides by a herd of deer. The animals aren't afraid of humans at all, and are slowly closing in. Ruth gets scared and doesn't know what to do. Suddenly, Amanda comes running, waving her arms and legs and shouting loudly to scare the deer away. After a while, her method works, and all the deer run away. But at that very moment, they see an even more terrifying sight. Nuclear explosions are going off in a nearby city. Meanwhile, Clay and George reach Danny's house to get medicine for Lyme disease. But Danny flatly refuses to help and points a gun at them. Clay somehow convinces him, gets the medicine, and leaves. Returning to the car, George tells Clay a story about his friend from the Department of Defense. His friend said this was all happening according to a plan. A conspiracy to overthrow the government. And it happens in 3 stages. First, all services like electricity, internet, and mobile are shut down. Second, a psychological attack is launched on people, like mental pressure from constant loud noises. Third, people start fighting amongst themselves, a civil war. Meanwhile, Rose reaches the large mansion she and her brother had seen from the forest cabin. Down in the basement, she finds a collection of movies. There she finds the disc for the last season of Friends. Rose plays it and finally gets to see the ending of her favorite series. And here, this story ends. If you enjoyed this story full of thriller, mystery, and survival, don't miss out on more such powerful stories. And next time, be the first to watch the story of the scariest and most mysterious movie.